Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to our webinar. I'm Hiral Jasani. I'm a product marketing manager at CleverTap and I handle the go-to-market strategy for the company. Today, I have with me Anand Prasad, who is a product manager, and he will be talking to us about the impact of quantifying the marketing campaigns for your business. Before we go ahead, certain housekeeping items. We'll be recording the webinar today, so if you want to share this recording on demand with your friends and colleagues, please feel free to do so. We also have a Q&A panel at the bottom, and where you can enter your questions. So we'll be taking those questions at the end of the webinar. So feel free to enter your comments, suggestions, and any thoughts you have. And then finally, we'll also share the recording with you on email tomorrow as a follow-up. Before we dive in, I would love to spend a couple of minutes on what CleverTap is for those of you who may not be familiar with what we do. CleverTap is a customer lifecycle management platform that helps build brands and helps them deliver delightful customer experiences at scale. It involves three key capabilities: customer data platform, automated segmentation and insights, and omnichannel engagement, all packaged in one powerful enterprise platform. With CleverTap, you can combine data from online and offline sources to measure the impact of your engagement strategies through every touch point in the customer journey. We work with a number of really innovative companies across every industry to help them deliver customer experiences at scale. Over 8,000 brands use CleverTap to build long-term user retention and achieve marketing objectives that directly tie to their business goals. So we work with Sony, Fandango, Star, Gojek, Vodafone, and many other brands that improve the impact of omnichannel marketing across the entire customer lifecycle with CleverTap. We operate out of San Francisco, and we have offices across Mumbai, Singapore, London, Bangalore, and other locations. Great. So why do people prefer CleverTap? And we like to bring this slide up because it just sets the stage for why are people looking at CleverTap and how do they align their business goals with what they're trying to achieve with CleverTap. We're a martech platform. We're purpose-built for a marketer to solve user retention and growth challenges. So that's one of the key reasons why we come up. We help brands build long-term loyalty with differentiated user experiences at scale. We help them achieve hypergrowth and scale themselves. As their users grow, we help them become more diverse and use the CleverTap platform to create one-on-one campaigns at scale. So our platform is engineered to perform exceptionally well at hyperscale. And finally, it's a customer-driven innovation that we have. It's a culture where we bring industry-first features to the market. We innovate to help make our customers' lives easy. And we have features like what we're going to talk today, like real impact, psychographic segmentation, predictive segmentation, recommendations, intent-based engagement, and many other exciting features and capabilities that have helped our customers create that impact, that have helped them generate value. And in combination, we've helped build over 1 billion in combined revenues for our customers. So with that, I would love to get into the agenda for today and get started with our topic, which I'm really excited about. So today we'll start with discussing the challenges that growth and retention teams have in measuring their campaign performance. We'll talk about one of the newest features on the CleverTap dashboard called Real Impact and why you should care about it. Anand will also touch upon some behind-the-scenes magic of Real Impact to understand the concept of control groups and how that helps us build this Real Impact feature and bring out some of the key metrics for your business. And then finally, we come to the actual metrics that Real Impact helps us measure to understand how campaigns perform over time. There are also features like transitions, which highlight some of the segment changes, which can be really useful to measure in terms of how your overall audience is performing. And then finally, we'll get into the Q&A where we'll have some time to go over your questions and some thoughts and comments. Okay, so with that, let's dive in. Today, marketing is a central player in the development and execution of strategic initiatives, right? They help drive significant business value. They are no longer a cost center, they're a revenue center. And that's why they're charged with delivering extremely relevant, timely, and highly contextual user experiences throughout the entirety of the customer engagement journey. And with that, they also have to deliver some of the top line revenue numbers, bottom line revenue numbers, decrease cost, manage digital budgets, which are increasing every year. But with that also comes the responsibility of delivering on these KPIs. So increasing number of CMOs are responsible for these growth metrics. And that's where our focus lies. From understanding the data to operationalizing it within their MarTech stack, we help them deliver on these demand gen, content marketing programs, and help them create a team that not only understands data, but uses it effectively. And that is the biggest market need for the hour for a CMO's organization. Studies have been showing a lot of challenges in the market. We've been tracking these metrics since, several years since we've been around. And studies have shown improvement in how marketers measure ROI across their campaigns, but the challenges still remain in terms of measuring the actual impact, a revenue impact of marketing. Forrester study finds that over half of B2B marketing executives find it challenging to attribute their marketing efforts directly to revenue. And that's where comes the challenges with also creating these dashboards that can give visibility into business metrics like ROI, like revenue, average revenue per user, so on. And it takes valuable time of the growth and retention team. They have to rely on their data scientists, their data analysts to bring all this data together. And the time it takes for them to reach their customer, therefore, increases. Marketing influence models that show that kind of deeper analysis, that take into consideration first touch, last touch, attribution, all of these. It's across different reporting structures, it's across different teams, departments, and that's what makes it really challenging to understand the actual impact of marketing. And that was our starting point, what we're trying to solve here. Similarly, a Nielsen study shows that only 1 in 4 marketers are confident of how they can quantify the ROI. So even if they're measuring the ROI in some way, they're not confident in the accuracy of this across their digital and traditional mix. So this chart shows, the question asked was, how accurately do you measure digital media ROI, and how confident you are in your traditional media ROI? And the respondents, less than a quarter of them were truly confident in their numbers. So that's another challenge. Are you able to bring all the information and data together to do an end-to-end analysis of your marketing efforts? And then finally, so we come to a point where we realize that, it's important to assess the long-term impact of your marketing campaigns. So, we've measured short-term campaign metrics like click-through rates, app downloads, traffic, etc. And, how do those compare with long-term metrics like conversion, retention, customer lifetime value? Every company today is no longer looking at just engaging their customers. It's more about nurturing them throughout their entire life cycle and ensuring that you are with them in their purchase journey through awareness, decision, purchase, and throughout, right? So customer lifetime lifetime value is that metric that's also increasing. And retention, of course, is always a challenge, and it's always one of the key metrics that businesses measure. So, how do your campaigns in the long term give you some of these numbers, right? So, instead of measuring metrics that give you number of leads or number of followers or number of impressions, like how do you come to a point where you bring your team together and start measuring things like cost per lead? How many referrals do you get? What is your ROI on your holiday campaigns and things like that? So the impact of the campaign itself on a particular customer behavior is a question that we're trying to answer, especially from the point of view of how whether your campaign itself impacted that behavior or was it something else, so that you can optimize your spend going forward. Similarly, analyzing customer actions after they receive a campaign, and to measure the uplift or a drop over a period of time. Let's say you ran your campaign for a whole 3 months or over a quarter or even longer than that. How do you measure the impact of a collective impact of your campaigns on your user base? How many churned, how many dropped off, at which point did they drop off, and how many converted and at what step, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the questions that we're trying to answer. And with these, we want to provide critical insights to your customer engagement and retention efforts, so they don't reflect just part of the story, but the whole story. And so we come to a point where we asked ourselves that these are the concerns when our customers run a series of campaigns, and we don't want them to get only surface level metrics to go off of. So I invite Anand, the product manager, to shed some light on this. Anand, take it over.
Hey Hiral, thanks for the awesome backdrop setup. There were some really interesting data points that you shared, and taking one of them over. So you mentioned, right? So marketing generally is looked at as a very silo function, something that is more of a luxury and not as important thing to have in an org. And that thought process has been changed in the current decade, or in fact in the current millennium, right? Marketing is now as central as any other department in an organization, and that is what most of the marketing tools get wrong, right? Most of the tools that we studied as a competition, they kind of approach this whole problem of marketing as a very different silo. And so what they offered was just a tool to send some push notification, do some analytics, and that's it. We tried to expand this to a different horizon altogether. So what we found out was that there's a very strong cause and consequence relationship between marketing and business. And that is what we are tapping with this particular feature called Real Impact, and to which I'll dig deeper in the later slides. Before I go there were some common questions that we got from some of our active customers and also our customer support teams, right? Some of these questions are, how do I know if my campaigns have actually contributed to my business? Now there is a contribution factor, but how do I know that? How do I benchmark my performance? Now benchmarking is so important in determining whether your campaigns were actually successful. How do I calculate my marketing ROI? Again, a very interesting stats asked by most CXOs and even most investors, right? Also, how do I calculate segment-wise revenue across any period? Now your CXO comes to you and asks you, well, these are the cities that you have sent the campaigns out to. How do I calculate which particular segment or which particular city is giving me the highest revenue, right? So these are the pertinent questions that get being asked over and over again, and most marketing tools do not cover them. And that is what we have tried to do with Real Impact. Can we move on to the next slide? Yeah, thanks. So before I dig deeper into the feature itself, let me give you some product perspective on how we generally look at building features for our customers. In product, the thought process is that every feature that is getting released, it should either increase the adoption, which means reach out to as many users, become useful for as many users as possible, or it should be highly frequent for usage by each and every user. So with Real Impact, we have tried to reach out to the segment of CXOs and directors and investors even, so that they can view the data points that directly concern their business. So we are so while developing a certain product, we kind of take care of the benefits that the user is going to get, the end user is going to get, right? Some of the benefit statements that we kind of conjured up are one of these. So let me read them through. So we decided that we would, with Real Impact, connect marketing results with business performance. That is something that gives marketing the prime focus in an org. We would also introduce a performance benchmarking against a control group. Now, what is a control group? I'll come to that. So the idea of benchmarking is how is my campaign actually useful? How do I know that? If I do not benchmark it against a certain different activity, and that's where the control group comes in. I'll come to it later. Uh, the third thing was the revenue generation part, as I mentioned. It is one of the most important thing that the finances related to marketing is concerned, right? Uh, the higher the revenue, the better the marketing department is doing. That's what it means. Apart from these three, we also thought, what if we can bring some more visibility of users to the marketer? If the user can actually view the inflow and outflow of users through various life cycle stages, how good would it be, right? A user on your mobile app or on your website goes via a life cycle. What if you have a way to see that uh, transition? Also, if I could put a particular score on a particular user, right, whether on what life cycle stage is he in, and what is the score needed to, let's say, put him from a lower stage to a higher stage. So these are the thought processes that we kind of churned and worked on and brainstormed over, and then we decided to like build Real Impact. So these were the value props, if I may say, that you can expect from the feature that I'm going to explain. Next slide, please. So I briefly mentioned about control groups. Now, what are control groups? Control groups, some of you may know, some of you may not. Control groups are the set of users who never receive a certain campaign. So now you might ask, how is it useful to me? Well, this benchmark allows me to kind of compare it against a group that actually received campaigns. So if I have a group of some X users who have received the campaigns and they are showing some conversions, and there's a group of Y users who is showing the same conversion, that means my campaign is actually useless. It is not working. So control group does the work of that devil's advocate. It actually gives you real insight whether your campaigns are actually working or not. Needless to say, this is a very fundamental entity of Real Impact, where we benchmark each and every metric against a control group metric of the same kind, right? So that's the overall concept behind control groups. Um, so control group audience are kind of very neutral to your marketing campaigns. They are like very inert, and they are not influenced by any of the marketing campaigns. We'll move on to the next slide. And again, an interesting concept comes up with the usage of control groups, and that is boost, right? Boost is the uplift that you get in the target group as compared to the control group, right? So it works on any key performance indicator, right? If I have to calculate an average revenue per user or my conversion rate, boost number shows me how good is my target group doing as compared to my control group. This might so happen that some campaigns may decrease engagements and conversions. You may ask how. Well, well, one fine day you said, "Hey, I just want to send this campaigns to every one of my users." Some of your users got offended and they uninstall your app. Or it might so happen you have been very frequent in sending some of the spam messages through mobile push or emails. Users decided to unsubscribe you. These are some of the campaigns that you should not be doing, and that is what we try to reflect through Boost. So you would be seeing a negative Boost number. That's when you kind of have to decide that this is the campaigns that are not working. So that is one of the point of views of looking at Boost. So again, like I said, you Boost numbers actually give you a decision, leave you with a decision to invest money on campaigns that are actually working for you. And needless to say, Boost becomes, in a way, the best way to measure real impact, and that's why we call it the most fundamental metric for real impact. Right? In the figure on the right, you can see that the left percentage is the target group. It's been calculating a retention rate, and the right one is control group. And so when I subtract this and then divide this over the control group, I see a Boost number. So that's how boosts are calculated. Okay, we can move on to the next slide. Now I'll give you a real life example. So let's say you have sent some campaigns in the month of January 2019, and the segment that you selected are the set of users who have viewed a product in the past 30 days. Now, what does this mean? This means you are trying to measure the effectiveness of all the campaigns that were sent in that particular time period. Now, suppose you have set a control group of users that are only 5%. Let's talk in numbers. Let's say there are 100 users, you have 5 users in the control group. And the target group has 95 users. Now you see on a fine day that the conversion is in the control group is 3%, whereas the conversion in the target group is 9%. Now there is a significant difference, right? So the boost in conversion, which I get by subtracting 9 from 3, which is 3 from 9, which is 6, and then dividing 6 by 3, so which is almost 100%. So that is so the boost in conversion becomes almost 150% for this particular case. So I hope this clarifies the concept of boost. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So what is real impact? Real impact, in simple terms, is a reporting dashboard. You can use real impact for presenting to CXOs, board of directors, etc. So real impact gives you a very consolidated set of metrics to kind of display the performances. It's also a long-term view of campaigns. How have your campaigns been performing day on day and year on year, and month on month? This is what the view gives you. And it's totally dependent on business metrics. We are not talking about vanity metrics, as Hiral already told in one of the slides above, right? Yeah, moving on. So now I'll dig deeper into each of the independent aspects of real impact. So these aspects are kind of the metrics, the KPIs that we show on the dashboard, right? Each and every KPIs. Starting with sticky quotient. Sticky quotient, as many of you might know, is a ratio of your daily active users over your monthly active users. This actually tells you how sticky, as the name suggests, are your users. A ratio of 100% or 1 would suggest that your users are very sticky and all your users are kind of visiting your app every day. And that is like the best possible app ever, right? But in reality, that does not happen. Even Facebook has some 80% of stickiness. When we calculate stickiness, like I said before, we calculate stickiness for the users who are also present in your control group. So once we get these two numbers, we kind of find out the boost, and you can see the sticky quotient, the uplift, the boost of sticky quotient for as a result of one of the campaigns that you have sent in that particular time period. I hope this part is clear. Yeah. Conversion is nothing but two-step funnel. So funnel, as you may have already heard of, funnel is if you have done event A and you have done event B, it's like a two-step funnel. So so the formula is the number of users who performed an event A upon the percentage of users, number of users who have performed the event B into 100 to get the percentage. Now, this a typical use case could be users who added to cart and users who purchased. Now, let's say for a control group, it's a very less number, let's say 2%, whereas for a target group, it's 10%. So you get a definite boost number. So this is as simple as that conversion. Can you move on? Retention is another interesting thing that we track. Retention means if your users have done a certain activity on the first day and then after 7 days he came back and did the same activity or any other activity, that would mean that you have retained that user for that time period, right? So that's what we enable you to measure here. So as you can see in this dashboard, you have first event, how many users did charged being the first event, and then came back and again did charged. So if you get this number around 5%, that means you have an amazing retention rate of charged activity. Now, charged is something that does not happen very frequently, but if you do an app launch to app launch, and if you see a good number, ideally the number can be 20% or even 50%, it doesn't matter, but that's how you measure your retention. Retention is something that helps you measure churn as well. 1 minus retention is churn. So that is a very important metric for your CXOs to know, your investors to know. Yes, moving on. Revenue per user, again, a very interesting metric from a financial standpoint. So revenue per user is just any revenue per user that you hear out in the markets. Is the total revenue versus number of users that are performing the event. So how do you calculate this average revenue per user metric? Is you pick the event that corresponds to your purchase on your app or on your website, and then you kind of do an aggregation of the event property, that is the amount of that particular event. So if it's charged, it will be the total amount. So once you sum this whole property together and then divide it with the number of users, you get the ARPU. Now, so as you can see here in the picture, in the image, there's 111.54% boost, which means the target group has done really well in ARPU front. And then there is an incremental value, which means with these set of campaigns, you have actually earned 56,851 USD or rupees or whatever currency is, that much monetary value of incremental value. Now, this is so important. With ARPU, you can measure almost any of the financial metrics. It can be LTV, it can be your LTV by CAC ratio. So if you know the CAC beforehand, and if you know an LTV for a user by the given number, you can actually find out the ratio. And if your ratio is more than 3, then your business is doing quite well. So this is all what gets enabled by seeing ARPU. Can you move on? Okay, again, a very interesting metric that CleverTap champions is the recency and frequency. So recency and frequency actually, or what we call as RFM, is a subsegment of different users. Now these are subsegments which gets auto-segmented from a set of users. So let's say you have 1 million users, you can actually see a subsegment of 11 different subsegments, wherein we give certain colors and certain names to these segments. Now, what does this mean? That means the champion users are the ones who are the most frequent and who have most recently visited your app, whereas the hibernating ones are the least frequent and have visited your app maybe a year back. So hibernating users are someone that you tend to focus on, whereas champion users are one who are the most loyal and keep coming back and back. So these 11 subsegments have other other areas as well, like you can see potential loyalists, their need attention. Each one of them mean something and actually invoke a different kind of campaign over them. So the idea of presenting RFM was to kind of segment users into different areas based on their potential to kind of convert. And this is also a representative of the life cycle of the user. So as you can see, some users who just joined might come as a new customer in the bottom right segment. Then if you have done some good marketing campaigns or your app is very sticky, they become potential loyalists and they become champions. But if you have done something bad or some kind of spammy content, they might also drop back to hibernating. So it's a very important metric to actually kind of look at, and this is kind of a gold mine of information in my opinion for user. The so yeah, so the next one is users transactions in RFM. So we took RFM and topped it up with user transactions, and this is one of my favorite metrics to see. User transition shows you how the user is moving across different life cycle stages. So we use the same RFM scores to kind of move users. So if a user has, let's say, a score of 7, and then after a month or so the score becomes 14, I would say the user has moved up the ladder of his life cycle stage, and he might be into some one of the other subsegments. So as you can see in the figure, for each subsegment we show how many users have came in for that period and how many users have moved out. Now the segments that are above the potential loyalist segment in the right side of the image, that means these segments are better than that. If the user is moving down, that means the user has kind of degraded in its value that he is providing to the platform. So this is a very interesting thing. You can just go ahead and look at it, those who have CleverTap, and you'll find immense information out of it. Yes, moving on. Uh, so that's kind of it from my end. I hope I was able to explain the nitty-gritties of the feature, and I also hope that you try it out and find it useful. Again, back to Hiral. Over to Hiral. You.
Thank you, Anand. That was very, very insightful. So here we are. I think we are excited to present this consolidated real impact, dashboard, or this reporting tool that's all encompassing. It'll help you directly map user behavior to campaign performances. You can instantly answer questions for that you've had for your campaign, as to how they're doing. And that's why, I like to sum this up into three sort of key benefits, right? That the takeaways that you can have from this, which is to exactly understand how your users reacted to a campaign message or creative, right? Let's say how many users uninstalled your app after the campaign, or should I have segmented the users before sending the campaign? Should I try another message or creative and see the uplift as a result, and maybe A/B test it if it's not working as well as I thought. These are the questions that Real Impact can help you answer instantly, right? As Anand mentioned, you enter the event that you're trying to measure, like making a purchase or adding to cart, and you can have a number of answers around that for your campaign. Similarly, you can very easily pull up some of the most valuable segments for your business with RFM and transitions, right? And find ways to move the needle on their engagement and retention metrics. So, how did my loyal users react to the holiday campaigns, or did it make a difference, or should I have maybe not sent out that campaign because they would have performed just as well? My revenue would have been just the same. In that case, you would save a lot of budget on promotions, right? So these are some of the things that we help the customers think and also get some kind of result on. Similarly, you can eliminate the guesswork in your KPIs, right? This is a uniform dashboard, and it takes into account all your campaigns over a period of time. So it helps you benchmark your campaign performance against a consistent group of control group users. So you're more confident in what you're trying to determine, right? What's working, what's not working, what worked last quarter versus this quarter. How are your retention numbers looking over a period of time, and how is the marketing budget across all your channels working out for you? So these are the numbers that we hope that Real Impact Dashboard can help you track, measure, and you're able to do it more accurately and more confidently, and finally presenting it to your team. So um, these were some of the insights that we wanted to bring to you. And with that, we want to open the floor to questions. Okay, I'll just give it a couple more seconds. Okay, Anand, so looks like we have a few questions that I would love for you to take. Okay, okay, so the first question is, what is the optimal percentage of users to add to a control group?
Yeah, it depends, I'd say. CleverTap allows you to set anywhere between 2 to 5% users in control group, right? So if your user base, so it depends on the monthly active user or your user base, right? If your user base runs in millions, you can safely choose 2%. But if you are in a 1,000 to 10,000 range, I recommend you setting a higher number. So for you, for maybe the lower MAUs, I would say a 4 to 5% control group will give you an optimal number to benchmark your performance. So ideally, as a thumb rule, I'd say that a higher percentage presents a more statistically significant result. But having said that, we understand that some users do not want this randomness to affect some identified users, right? There are some loyal users that you know that they would always come to your app again and again and do the activities that you intend them to perform. So for this, we have introduced a certain marker on the dashboard where you can mark a user profile, and then they will be never added to a control group ever. So the randomness will not affect them. So yeah, that's the answer. 2 to 5%. If you run into millions, choose 2%. If you are 1K to 10K set of users, choose a higher number. That's
That would make sense. It'll depend on the size of your audience, and then for how long have you been doing this. But 2 to 5%, that sounds right. That's what we tell our customers as well. Okay, we have a few more questions coming. How do you select users in a control group?
That's a great question. We use an algorithm to kind of randomly assign users into control group. This algorithm takes into account multiple factors like your device ID, your profile ID to make the selection. The randomness also ensures that users in control group kind of is a representative sample set of your actual target group. So that's how we select users in the control group. And just to make a small note, the control group needs to be active for at least 4 weeks around for the real impact to show some marked difference, because user behavior does not get changed in a night, right? It takes time. So to actually see the difference in real impact and boost numbers, you have to kind of allow the control group users and the target group users to settle in their own domains. Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, next question. What is the significance of the different subsegments in RFM? Can you throw some light on the different segments we went over?
Yes. So as I grazed over briefly in the presentation, RFM subsegments actually tell you about the user's life cycle on your app. So there are around 11 identified stages starting from hibernating to champions. Your champion users score the most on recency, frequency, and monetary dimensions. Your goal as a marketer should be to have as many users as possible into this segment. But obviously, that does not happen every day, and that's okay. You have intermediate stages like some loyal customer is also good to have. It's also good to have some potential loyalists. So the significance is about the life that this is a representative of your user's life cycle states.
Makes sense. Um, I'll jump to this one more question. So we talked about the RFM score, right? Recency, frequency, and monetary score. So I guess we answered it in a way, but the question is, how is this score calculated? Is it normalized? I think that's what the algorithm is, right? On a scale of one
Yeah.
to five. Yeah.
So we kind of divide the users into percentiles, right? So the top 20 percentile. So imagine recency as one dimension. So we kind of see who are the most recent, the top 20% in the highest recent users, the next 20%. So the top 20% will get a score of 5. The next 20% gets a score of 4, and so on and so forth. Same is done for frequency, and same is done for monetary. Now we kind of consolidated these scores into a certain formula uh, that is defined by CleverTap. We give weights to these recency, frequency, and monetary scores, and then we come up with a score. So the score is kind of a summation of these three weighted uh, percentile scores. So a good RFM score will mean that the users of the group of users are close to being a champion. A lower RFM score, again, as obvious, will mean that they are going to hibernate, they're going to sleep, and you might want to pay attention to them.
That makes sense. That can be very useful. Okay, we have one more question around. Okay, someone's asking, what is a system control group, and are there different types of control groups on CleverTap?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So there are different types of control group. There is a control group that we call system control group. System control group, you can just like from the top of your mind, just associate it with a global level control group. So once you define a system control group, that goes out to all your users. So that particular segment of users who will not receive campaigns are selected out of all your users on the platform. A custom control group is again global, but it is not supposed to be used with all the campaigns. It is supposed to be selected for specific campaigns, which means it's very context specific, but the context has to be defined by you. Then there is a third kind, that is campaign control group, and that has been there since the initiation of CleverTap. Campaign control group is generally only specific to that particular campaign. So if you are sending out a campaign for Christmas and there are almost 100K users and you define a 5%, so it's only those 100K users from which the 5% of people will be selected and put into a control group. So those are the three types of control group, and that was the purposes of them.
Excellent. Okay, one more question says, how soon do I see the results on the Real Impact dashboard? I guess we answered that, right? It takes about 4 weeks at least, but we recommend around 4 to 6.
Yeah, so that is the part where the control groups gets warmed up. But if the question is about how soon do I see the results on the dashboard, I'd say it's instant. So I'd give you some background on this. This is a good question. Uh, this is where we shine, right? Most of our competitor platforms take few hours to show the results. Some of them use a sample set of users, and which is not that accurate. So for a million users, they will actually pick some 100K users of sample, and they'll show you the results of that. Those are not accurate. We have a very highly scalable infrastructure that allows us to do massive calculations on terabytes of data within seconds. So you get the actual results available immediately on the dashboard within a few seconds. I hope that helps.
That's very useful. I'm sure our customers appreciate that. Great. Okay, I think we have, we can take one more question. There's a few more coming. Okay, so how far out in the past, how far back in the past can we see the real impact of a campaign or campaigns?
So you can see the real impact of campaigns uh, into as much time as you can go into the past, right? So if you have created a campaign 3 years back and you want to see the real impact that happened like 3 years back on that particular campaign, you can actually see that. The only caveat here is that you have to have enabled the control group at that point of time. Now, since control group was a feature that has been introduced in this December 2018, so that is the time period that we can offer as of now.
Got
So I
it.
hope.
Makes sense. Great. I think we would love to hear more from you. There are a few more questions coming, and Anand and I would be happy to answer them on email. So this is what we do at the end. Feel free to email us at info@clevertap.com, and we'd be able to send you some material as well as answer some of these questions that you might have on real impact. We would also love to show you, what a quick demo if you'd like, or if you're already using CleverTap, then you'd have this recording, which would be like a quick reference for you when you're starting to use some of these metrics on the dashboard. Okay, with that, we were really thrilled to have this presented to you today. Thank you for joining us, and we look out for a lot more exciting stuff from our product team, and we'll have a lot more of these coming up over the next few months. So watch the space. Thank you all. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anand. Yep.